Reaching the expected development benchmark of infancy and childhood, like sitting, rolling over, crawling, standing, and walking, are a matter of great joy for parents. But if a child's developmental timetable seems delayed, there's cause for concern, as cerebral palsy may be lurking. There are many telltale signs that a child may have cerebral palsy, but its primary effect is impairment of muscle tone, gross and fine motor functions, balance control, coordination, reflexes, and posture. Oral motor dysfunctions such as swallowing and feeding difficulties, speech impairment, and poor facial muscle tone can also indicate cerebral palsy. In Nigeria, cerebral palsy is a leading cause of childhood neurodisability. Affected children face their dead burden of stigmatization, poverty, inadequate facilities for rehabilitative care, and diminished educational opportunities. So as the world marks the Cerebral Palsy Day, Nigeria Today focuses on how to manage the incurable disorder. Welcome to the program. I'm Victor Azu. Joining me in the studio to discuss managing cerebral palsy is Dr. Gideon Nwankwo, is Senior Registrar at the Pediatrics Neurology Unit, National Hospital, Abuja. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank
and
you
also joining us this time via Skype from Lagos is Nonyeweke, Founder and Executive Director, Cerebral Palsy Center. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm glad to be here.
Let me begin here in the studio by asking Dr. Gideon Nwankwo to simply give us further insights into the cerebral palsy disorder. What are the causes?
Cerebral palsy is, by definition, even though most people think there are no single definition for cerebral palsy, cerebral palsy is a disorder that affects motor, posture of an individual, most times children, and there are very many causes. Some of the causes are causes that surround the birth of the child. It could be prenatal, that is before the child is born. It could be around the time of birth. It could also be after the child is born. Before the child is born, for instance, in a mother that has high blood pressure as a result of pregnancy and may have some insufficiency with the placenta. And if there is this insufficiency with the placenta, the child may not get enough oxygen to the brain. And when this happens, the brain is injured. It can also be in the process of delivery. In the course of delivery, maybe there is no adequate attention to the mother, or there's prolongation of the labor period. In the course of that, the child may also not be able to get some oxygen to the brain, and the brain is injured.
Is there any way to know at that point in time if it could degenerate to that?
Actually, you may not be able to say the extent that the brain will be affected at the initial time when this insult is being done to the brain. But there are the gynecologists at the time of delivery have a way of finding out that this child is in serious trouble, this child is struggling, and then for them to be able to intervene, immediately or at the right time. But when there is no adequate care at the time that this thing is happening, especially when the delivery processes is not conducted in the hospital, or the delivery is not attended by an adequate medical personnel, then these it becomes difficult to know that something is about going wrong, and this child is now born with these cerebral palsy.
Now, is it possible that it could be genetic?
Yes, it can also be genetic. So some people have postulated that some genes coding for some chemicals, that chemicals in the body can actually lead to overproduction of some of these chemicals, leading to the injury to the brain. So okay, some people postulate that it could be genetic, but some of these things are still at the level of speculations.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Gideon Nwankwo, for your opening shots. Let me go over now to Lagos via Skype, where Nonyenweke is waiting. Nonye, please tell us, from your experience, how does cerebral palsy present and what are the symptoms?
Well, I'll be talking from the standpoint of a mother and one who has managed cerebral palsy for the past 10 years. I manage children with cerebral palsy, what I call you can say a barefoot therapist. My experience comes from personal experience and from trainings that I have done in various places abroad. So how does cerebral palsy manifest? First of all, just like the doctor said, as a point of birth, apart from an experienced gynecologist or obstetrician, you may not be able to know that the child has CP. But from history, history of whatever has happened, that the child did not cry on time or has asphyxia, then the child will know. But then from 3 months, for African babies, they are said to hold up their heads from 3 months. So when the child is not holding up her head, doesn't have neck control, the child does not roll over, the child does not sit at ages, I think 4 months or 5 months. That is just put in a nutshell, the child is not meeting the developmental milestones, sitting at the right time, not crawling, not walking. So you begin to suspect that something is wrong, with the child. So this is how it manifests, basically.
It was. That is it degenerative? Does it go from bad to worse, kind of?
No, the cerebral palsy is a permanent thing. It just happens. The act is, is described as an accident. So it just happens that once. It's not progressive. Once it's mild, but the conditions that comes with it can make it appear as if the child is getting worse. That is, for instance, if the child is not getting the necessary therapies, or if the associated conditions that come with it is not properly managed. If a child has maybe seizures, like they say, if the child has comorbidities. Some children have comorbidities, they have seizure disorders. So you find out that you are trying to manage the seizures. Again, it depends on I always say, the background of the family. Some people may not have the money to, to do the right therapies. They will not have the money to take the medications. The seizure medications are very expensive. And some of them might come with other issues, like, so you see some, they have cortical blindness, they will have hydrocephalus that, comes with it. So you have a lot of things you are managing, just not managing the CP. So instead of doing the therapy, the physical therapy, which is what is recommended, what is the key, you find out that the child keeps getting distorted. That is either the joints keep getting stiff, and after a while it becomes more difficult to stretch out the child. So that is it's not progressive. It's not once it's a mild case, it's a mild case. If it's severe, it's severe. It's now how it is managed. That is what will help to know how the child will progress.
Now, let me ask you again, what has been your experience managing your own ward?
Well, my daughter is 14, and I would say that it's not a walk in the park. And I have 20 other children I manage, 10 of who are living with me. That's post-COVID. And it's CP is the most expensive congenital disorder to manage all over the world. So you're talking of the therapies, you're talking of the care that is, before you even get to the physical care, you're talking of the money you have to spend buying the medications, buying the everyday need. My own child is totally dependent at 14 years. What that means is that you wake up in the morning, you have to bathe her, you have to change position for her. And let me quickly say that we have been on therapy since she was 5 months. She was diagnosed at 5 months. And we've been doing the right things. We've even combined alternative therapies. There's a leading therapy which we are doing. We've been doing that since 2011, and she's progressing very well. What that means that the distortions are not setting in. Her seizure is in control. It is very expensive. It is not something, particularly in our society, where there is no social concern at all. People are not, the governments, the people who are supposed to, care, there is no social support for families. So you find out that you take care of your child 1 year, 2 years, it's easy for you to stop therapies. It's easy for you to stop the medications, and the child doesn't get any better.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Noyenweke. Let me get back here in the studio. Dr. Nwankwo, she's talked about her experience, and given the background that we have from you and from her, how best can cerebral palsy be managed?
Well, cerebral palsy is best managed by preventing it. For us, we believe that prevention is the first line of management. There are some cultural practices that we have that encourage mothers not to attend antenatal, or mothers not to take some precautions, before, during pregnancy. Such cultural practices, if there are policies that can stop that, cerebral palsy will be prevented. The other way to prevent it is that mothers should have information. Mothers are not supposed to smoke when they are pregnant. Mothers are not supposed to drink alcohol when they are pregnant. Some of these things, if
not even talking about too much of it or less, total. Not
at all. Actually, they shouldn't take. They should not smoke. Hard drugs is contraindicated in pregnancy. So prevention of this is the first line of managing cerebral palsy. There are some other things like not having adequate gynecologists or experienced midwives to be able to attend to deliveries. If these things are done, cerebral palsy will be prevented. But in situations whereby a mother has had a child and that child has some problems taking the first breath, crying at birth, the most important thing to do is to bring that child to the hospital. That child should be managed by a pediatrician. There are so many modalities that should be done. Just like Noyenweke said, it is not a progressive disorder. Once the insult is done, you try to manage it. At that point that it's happened, if, for instance, oxygen is not getting to the brain, everything has to be done to make sure that oxygen gets to the brain as quickly as possible, and that the injury, the inflammatory markers that are produced by that insult does not continue to destroy the brain. So if these things are done, these are things that pediatricians know how to do. It will prevent this thing from getting worse. Then on the other hand, a mother has a child, and that child, like the developmental milestones, like Noyenweke said, is not in keeping with what is expected for that child at that age. The thing is to go to the hospital. It's a pity that some of our mothers, their health-seeking behavior is so poor that they will wait until a child is 1 year, until a child is 2 years, until a child is 3 years, and this child cannot go to school before they come to the hospital. At that point, it's becoming a bit late. Then the mainstay of treatment is physiotherapy. Suffice it to say also that there's a multidisciplinary approach to this. Gynecologists, well, the media let the information go around. The gynecologists ensure that mothers give birth in the right conditions. Pediatricians, if there's any insult, stop it, nip it at the bud. Then physiotherapists come in. And when these children also grow, there is also room for occupational therapists that will help these children to be able to do well.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Dr. Gideon Nwankwo. We'll pause here now for a break, just to hear from everyday Nigerians to see how much they know about cerebral palsy. Nigeria Today returns afterwards.
Cerebral has to do with brain. So I see people, the parents, the way they struggle in raising the children. I happen to have a cousin, but he died.
Oh, I am not medically inclined, so I've not heard of that.
I know what is cerebral, but the palsy, I don't know.
I'm not aware of it.
All right, good to have you back. Clearly, the Vox Pop shows a lack of awareness of what cerebral palsy is all about. But let me go back to Nonye, who has joined us via Skype. Nonye, how can awareness be improved, and how might the Nigerian education system accommodate or support people with such conditions, in your opinion?
The issue of awareness is, I must tell you that people are a lot more aware of the condition, much more than they were 10 years ago, or even 14 years ago, or 20 years ago. Thank God for the social media. Most families now who have children with CP, they will tell you, it's easy for once you mention the name, the child has cerebral palsy, they are able to check online, they are able to tell. Even those who can't check online, there are support groups. And that is what Cerebral Palsy Center does. When we established CP Center 10 years ago, it's the first center in Nigeria to manage children with cerebral palsy. We started talking about cerebral palsy. There are modalities of how to manage children with cerebral palsy. And thereafter, by the time a woman is aware that the child has CP, the next challenge will be, what do I do with this child? Therapy is very expensive. In the sense, even when it's not expensive to go to the public hospitals, once in 2 weeks, once in 3 weeks. After that, what are you going to be doing with the child? Because the regular CP child, most of them are not working until that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, by which time, what will the woman be doing? So, which is why we established the CP Center. We are trying to do something that is obtainable abroad, where you have a one-stop stop, where people walk in with their children, they are counseled, you have therapies for them. Those who can't, because we know that the society have people who can and who can't. There are people who cannot afford to manage their children. So they leave their children, they go to work in the morning, then when they close from work, they come and take their children, because you are in the introduction, and somebody says something like, most of the children are abandoned. The question is, why are they abandoned? Because the woman does not have where to take the child to, where the child can be well taken care of. So in CP Center, we are building a world-class facility where we have children, all the necessary professionals that are necessary to manage cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is not a sickness, so you don't need the hospital unless a child has other issues, like maybe the child has seizures. Some of them are not able to swallow very well. Some of them you have to put a peg. We have 3 children here where you have to feed through the tube. So when you have a separate place where you manage those children, you find out that you get better at doing these things, which is why you have different schools you have law school, you have this. So when we have in this center here now, for the past 10 years, every day, we can say with all sense of humility that we have a better understanding of how to manage the children. Because you know why, if a child is sick, most of them are not able, not all of them are not able to tell you they are sick, they're anything, but you are already able to know when to nip it on the bud. And then the woman has understood that the cerebral palsy is not going away, but you need a kind of facility, and that is why we are building the CP Center, where you can have people coming. And to think we have done this for free for the past 10 years without any intervention, just people, individuals, the public trying to support. Imagine when we talk of awareness, not only to create awareness, we need organizations, corporate bodies to support institutions like Cerebral Palsy Center, where families can go and get support for their children, where governments can, abroad, there's a structured way. Once your child has a condition, there is a way, you have a place where you can go to, and they get subvention where they are supported so that the children can get good care. Some of them are able to be integrated in regular schools. We've had children we've managed after a couple of years, we put them in regular school with support, because some of them, even when they're walking, even when they're able to communicate, they still need support, because you know that the damage which they have is a permanent damage. So they will still need support to be able to still continue their lives.
Right, but then, now that you said you cannot take them to the hospital, how can caregivers get the best out of children with such special needs?
The caregivers, we train the caregivers as well. In CP Center, we have a therapy which is called Advanced Biomechanical Rehabilitation Therapy, which we have done for the past 8 years, and we have proven that is effective. And it is very easy for caregivers to apply such therapies under the guidance. We work with physiotherapists under their guidance. Caregivers are trained. For instance, this COVID era, when parents are not able to bring out their children, before we close down for COVID, we'll be able to train some of the parents to be able to apply these therapies on their children. But then we must again understand that there are people who just cannot support their children. That is how nature made it. So what happens to those children? That is why institutions exist. That is why you have, government support for institutions like this. So such people, we train our caregivers. We have a training models for the caregivers. Well, they now help us to take care of these children.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Nwankwo. What should be the attitude of parents towards children with cerebral palsy?
Well, when a parent or parents have a child that has cerebral palsy, we expect them to, one, be patient with these children. Also to love these children. Not to compare them with their peers, others of their age. And also to understand that when a child has not started walking at the time you expect that child to walk, you don't begin to talk to that child, you're lazy, you don't want to move. They should understand that there's a problem, something is wrong with these children, and support them. The key words there for me is patience and support these children. It's not a time to leave them at home and go to work. It's a time to look for information. Look for information. The information is available. Yes, I know that Nigeria, we are not so developed that you can always have information, complete information about what you need. But on the internet, there's information. In the hospital, there's information. If you come to the hospital, we will be able to explain to the parents, this is what is wrong with this child. And these are the things that we expect you to do. Then follow up. Most times, these mothers give up.
Okay. They have to keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. Be patient with these children. Is there
a life expectancy for children living with cerebral palsy?
Well, the life expectancy for children living with cerebral palsy is dependent on the comorbidities that they have. Some of them will come down with seizures, and when they have seizures without any treatment, without intervention, most of the time it will affect their life expectancy. Okay. And of course, you also know that in our society where people have so many beliefs about seizure disorders, they may begin to think, this one has an evil spirit, and let's put the legs inside the water, inside fire, and all that. And when these children are not taken care of and they stray, they can either be knocked down by a car, or if the mothers are not properly trained, because they also have problem with feeding, they can aspirate, and when they aspirate, of course, it becomes very bad. Yeah. So it actually depends on the comorbidities that the patients have.
Let me quickly get the closing thoughts of Onye in 30 seconds, please. Onye, in what ways can communities support people with cerebral palsy, whether children or adults? In 30 seconds, please.
Before we talk of community, let's say, how do the government needs to have a way to mainstream children with cerebral palsy and support organizations that are working with children with cerebral palsy. Because if government does not do that, they have to show the light to the community, to the societies, so that the people in the society will know that these children too are part of the society. So I think apart from the individual efforts or private efforts, the government has to have a way where they will support organizations that work with children with cerebral palsy. It is okay to create awareness. In fact, I want to say that with all due respect, that the stage where parents burn their children's feet, where they don't call their children lazy, I think we've passed that stage at all. A lot of families are well informed now. Even in the rural areas, there's a way you communicate with them, and they have accepted their children. After acceptance, what happens?
Thank you very much, Noiwanko. I wish you could go on and on, but I'm sure you've made your point, and It's been a pleasure really having you join us via Skype from Lagos. Thank you very much for the insights.
Thank you very much.
All right, now the conversation has been really illuminating, and for me, major takeaway is that there is an urgent need to provide adequate social support services and optimal educational opportunities for Nigerian children with cerebral palsy. Dr. Gideon Wankwo, Senior Registrar in Pediatrics, Neurology Unit, National Hospital, Abuja. Many thanks for coming on the program.
My pleasure, sir.
Nigeria Today now returns tomorrow, same time. But you can watch this edition and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Victor Azu. Thank you indeed for your time.
Independence for Nigeria in 1960 is imperative. But independence for Nigeria as a corporate entity is not enough. The peoples of Nigeria must at the same time be guaranteed their freedom. We must ensure that in an independent Nigeria, individual citizens throughout the land enjoy liberty and equality under the law. There must be one Nigeria with one constitution and one law for all. Let us therefore, the servants are, close our ears to the counsel of the chair, which says that we cannot here at this conference agree on a constitution.
It makes no difference to me really whether I win this election or not. I want you to believe me, and I'm not talking politics. For 25 years of my life, I fought for the freedom of Nigeria. Nigeria will attain independence on October 1, 1960. So it makes no difference to me whether it's Sardauna or Balewa or Chief Awolowo or myself will become the first Prime Minister. So long as Nigeria is free, I'll be satisfied.
Mr. President, last Saturday, the country which I have the honor to represent, the Federation of Nigeria, became independent and assumed the rights and the responsibilities of a sovereign state. Today, Nigeria has been admitted into the United Nations organization and assumes still more responsibilities. On behalf of my countrymen in Nigeria, I thank you all most sincerely for accepting us as a fellow member in this organization.
14th October 2020. Venue, NTA TV College premises, Raceway, Jos. Time 9 a.m. daily. Screening fee 2,000 naira. Paid through the remitter platform in any commercial bank in favor of NTA TV College, Jos. Eligible candidates are those who indicated NTA TV College as their first choice and scored 180 and above in the 2020 UTME examination. Candidates are expected to come along with the originals of their O-level certificates, JAM slips, birth certificates, indigenship certificate and proof of payment. Direct entry candidates are expected to come along with their original diploma certificates, A-level results in addition to the other credentials mentioned above. Shortlisted candidates without O-level results will not be cleared by JAM. Therefore, all candidates are advised to visit any JAM office or accredited CBT center nearest to them to